Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Wednesday, October 23rd. Have you been traded? Have I been traded? Has Bert been traded? I don't know. There were only two trades that this team did make today, but they've had people's heads spinning because fair to expect that the Tennessee Titans are in selling mode and that the transactions are not done just yet. There's a lot of different things to dive into here tonight. And of course, the headline is that there is a fire sale with this organization, and it started this morning before 6 a.m. Central Time with DeAndre Hopkins being moved from the Tennessee Titans to the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, Ernest Jones, who was just acquired via trade from the Los Angeles Rams, has been swapped for Jerome Baker and a fourth-round pick to send him to Seattle. So you get one linebacker on an expiring contract for another linebacker on an expiring contract and get a fourth-round pick in exchange. We will go through the compensation for both of these trades. We will talk about who needs to be traded next and all the different players that we have been talking to in the locker room. In fact, Bert, I didn't ask you for this, but I'm going to send you this Jeff Simmons clip to be used here in just a second if we could find ways to incorporate that into the show, because I do think that it is relevant to hear from from Jeffrey Simmons, because Jeffrey Simmons is not the plan right now. The plan right now is to not trade Jeffrey Simmons, though I did have a scout. Let me say this. I did have a scout with an NFC team text me today. In fact, text me. Let me read this text specifically while I'm trying to find the thing to send to Bert. Unprompted, I got a text from an NFC scout today that said, "Give us Jeff Simmons. Y'all don't need him. LOL." And I happen to know that this particular NFC team was at least inquiring about what it might cost to acquire Jeff Simmons, but they don't want to move him. So that's that. So anyway, we are going to dive into these things tonight. We'll get your reaction, your raw and honest reaction, though I know you guys had the opportunity to react with Austin and Zach this morning. We will flesh out some more of those thoughts here over the course of the next 30 to 45 minutes. You will hear from Ian Rappaport. You will hear from Jeffrey Simmons. You will hear from me, and we'll work through these things together because I spent the day in the locker room talking to a bunch of players who are still there about the guys who are no longer still there, and the vibes are interesting at this point. So we will dive in together. Before we start the show, need you guys to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch in the comments section. Wherever you are spending your time with us, we appreciate when you spread the love, when you share this show. Maybe it's not a love-filled show tonight, but there are some things we're talking about, and I will tell you that there is some silver lining to all of this, even if it feels kind of icky right now. So share the broadcast around, retweet it on Twitter, share now to public in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen on YouTube, or rather on Facebook Live, and like the video, subscribe to the channel on YouTube or on Twitch, wherever you are spending your time with us. Ben Hall says, are we allowed to say that Ran Carthon deserves this for what he did to Vrabel? Well, what did he do to Vrabel? I mean, unless you know something that I don't. Now, here's what you could say of that dynamic, because the answer is no. You're not. I mean, you are allowed to say whatever you want to beyond, things that are hurtful, hateful, or problematic. You understand that, but I mean, you're allowed to express that particular opinion, but I don't think that's correct. Mike had plenty to do with his own demise here, and I don't think that's worth relitigating. Now, you can say that they deserve whatever they get because they upsold you on a bunch of different things, while also firing Mike Vrabel, who I know many of you liked. But I don't, deserves what? Deserves losing, deserves embarrassment, deserves fire sale. I don't know. What did he do to what he did to Vrabel? Question mark, says Joseph. Vrabel got himself fired. That's not totally accurate. There were also some people that allowed Mike to have enough rope to hang himself with. So I do think that is fair criticism if you wanted to lob that into the direction of the people who are still running the show or who are still there, basically. I do think that plenty of people could have helped Mike Vrabel keep his job if that's what they wanted to do. But there's reason to believe that that's not what they wanted to do. And that's okay. That's their decision to make. That's how these things work sometimes. It's Game of Thrones when it comes to how things actually work in these NFL atmospheres, because I'm getting, the Titans are 1-5. There's a bunch of people that aren't front-facing employees that work in that building that are stressing the hell out about whether they're going to get new contracts or whether they're all going to get fired or whether anybody cares or this, that, and the other. Whether they're being told truths about everything that's going on or whether they're being led astray with other intentions. There's plenty of discontent inside the Titans building right now, but that's what happens when you lose. So we don't have to relitigate the Vrabel thing. I don't think that's time well spent here tonight, because that's not who's coaching the team anymore, and you've got a different situation, and DeAndre Hopkins is the headline here today. So we'll work our way through these things together. So let's do that. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studio. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by Zen Sports. Basketball is back. I'm watching the NBA tonight. You can bet on basketball, football, baseball, World Series right around the corner. All your favorite major sports at zensports.com with the promo code ATOZTN. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. In fact, I had somebody ask me about Two Rivers Ford today, and I could tell them with 100% honesty and transparency that they're the best in the business. In fact, they're Nashville's best car dealership, according to the Nashville scene. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. The Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators, who got their first win of the season last night. Congratulations to the Preds. At least somebody's winning something. GaryAshton.com. And TrueMap Fitness, your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident, where you can also commiserate with other suffering Titans fans, because Worth Campbell, the owner and operator of TrueMap Fitness, is a diehard Titans fan, and Worth and I were just messaging about how miserable he is today. So if you want to commiserate and get the best workout of Middle Tennessee, TrueMap Fitness is your spot. So DeAndre Hopkins is traded today, and the compensation is not great. I mean, it's not great at all. The question, your Two Rivers Ford take, that I'll ask you is this. What was your reaction in real time to DeAndre Hopkins getting traded? Were you happy? Were you sad? Were you both? Were you okay with the compensation? Did you think they should have gotten more? What was your initial reaction to the Titans news, or to the news this early this morning, that DeAndre Hopkins would be traded away from this franchise in the second year of his 2-year, $26 million deal? So per Tom Pelissero, who ended up getting the full compensation or full trade per sources at Tom Pelissero on Twitter, Titans get a 2025 fifth-round pick that becomes a fourth-rounder if Kansas City reaches the Super Bowl and Hopkins plays 60% of his snaps as a Chief. The Chiefs get DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee also eats about half of his salary there, which is $2.5 million, to finalize the deal. So is it a good trade? I don't know. I mean, anything to recoup assets at this point. I'm not going to say anything to recoup assets at this point, because there are such things as bad trades. Even on a 1-5 football team that involve draft picks, you have to make sure that you get the compensation as right as humanly possible for both sides. It has to be an equitable deal. But, I mean, that's Kansas City looking around, seeing that the Rams won't eat Cooper Kupp's salary, as Diana Rossini reported today, and saying, okay, Tennessee, what will you pay me to take DeAndre Hopkins? What will you pay me to save DeAndre Hopkins from the Titanic? No pun intended. But this sinking 1-5 ship, what will you give me to make taking DeAndre Hopkins off your hands worth my while? And the Titans don't have any leverage here, right? They can make shit up and say, well, the Bucs are calling us about DeAndre Hopkins. Bucs didn't call about DeAndre Hopkins. Who else had a wide receiver injury here in the last couple of days? Well, the Saints know, because Marquez Valdez-Scantling signed there. Well, maybe Aaron Rodgers could use somebody else up. Devontae Adams has already been traded from the Raiders to the Jets, but the Bills, Amari Cooper, he just diced you up on Sunday. So there's no leverage to be had here. Does that make it a good deal? I guess. Meh. It's a meh deal, right? Because now the most famous player on the roster, the player who elevated your franchise infinitely more than you elevated him, is now on his way to Kansas City to compete for a Super Bowl for the first time in his long and storied NFL career. And you get back what feels like a pretty good opportunity for a fourth round pick. And he's 32. He's at the end of his deal. It's a rental. All these other things. I understand why Kansas City made them eat the money that they did, but they tried a bunch of different options at Kansas City, and they ended up just being like, shoulder shrug, we'll take DeAndre Hopkins off your hands. So with everything that's happening right now, I think that do you think D-Hop will come back? Come back where? Here? No. For what? Why would DeAndre Hopkins come back here? Yeah, as a free agent? I mean, or just, as a citizen. I think DeAndre Hopkins will continue to do, because he has business ventures in Nashville. He's he's been a big fixture of the community since he got here. So do I think he'll ever come back to the city of Nashville? Yeah, I bet he spends some time in Nashville moving forward, because I know he's invested in the entertainment industry here, and he's made a commitment to youth sports here, which I really, really respect. He's maintained relationships in Arizona and in Houston long after he left there. But yeah, I mean, I assume you're not talking about coming back to play for the Tennessee Titans. Why on earth would he do something like that? His hoppy vibes are in Nashville, says Allison. Well, I mean, his hoppy vibes are wherever he goes, right? He's a self-made individual that way, and I'm not worried about DeAndre Hopkins. What he will go on to do is going to be really, really cool. But and what he does already will be really, really cool. He's very much he will come back to hang out with Jelly Roll and Morgan Wall. I was talking to Jelly about this the other day. And if this was the radio show, you guys could find me, because Lucas says that it's a finable offense anytime I brag about famous friends. But this isn't a brag. It's a buddy of mine, and I'm talking to him in the bowels of Nissan Stadium after the game against the Colts. And we were talking about the idea that Jeff and Hopkins had both reached out to Jelly about the idea of getting involved with the youth prison system here in Nashville, given that Jelly is obviously a product of the juvenile detention facility right there across from Nissan Stadium. And Jelly was talking about, and I don't think that this was in confidence. I don't think I'm betraying a confidence talking about this. And I think all three of them have talked about this in some form or fashion, but he was saying how much he respected that DeAndre Hopkins was borderline pestering him about getting involved in the local community and things like that. So to see that is really, really cool. And I think that Hop will continue to have some level of involvement in the city of Nashville beyond his time as a player here. Benjamin says he's totally bragging, isn't he, Bert? No, I mean, I could. We should do that with me one time. Find me for the most famous people in my phone, because I've got a pretty good Rolodex these days. But it's totally worth finding me, because if I start to sound pretentious about that, I completely understand why it's a fine. Anyway, so with everything that's going on right now with the Titans, what was your honest reaction to the deal? And if you did not hear the compensation of the terms, this was Ian Rappaport providing some context on the Hopkins trade from Tennessee to Kansas City.
It has been a long rumor deal that now is happening. Sources say DeAndre Hopkins, the star receiver for the Tennessee Titans, is in the process of being traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. The champs continue to load up. Another day, another big-time receiver moves. It has certainly been a season full of them. We've seen Devontae Adams. We've seen Amari Cooper. Now DeAndre Hopkins is the latest. My understanding is this is in exchange for a fifth rounder that could become a fourth rounder. The two sides are still going back and forth now on salary. My understanding is the Titans are going to pay some of DeAndre Hopkins' base salary for this year, just to make it easier for the Chiefs to withstand the salary. But this trade is expected to happen. So KC has lost Hollywood Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster not going to play this week. But DeAndre Hopkins is expected to be there. You're right. This has been a long rumored trade. But listen to how fast it happened. It has been nothing but rumors till about, I would say, midnight last night, Kansas City time. The two sides got together. They kind of threw hypotheticals back and forth. By about 5 or 6 in the morning, today it became clear that a deal would happen, expected to be finalized soon. D-Hop going to join the Chiefs.
So, A to Z Sports Prime Time is made possible by Zen Sports. Bet on all your favorite major sports in the Zen Sports app. Promo code ATOZTN gets you involved on basketball, baseball, football, hockey, all your favorite major sports. And apparently, Leo yowling in the background, he just joined the show, can be found at zensports.com. They can't get rid of your cat yowling problem, but they can make betting that much more fun. Go to zensports.com, promo code ATOZTN. Up to $100 on your no danger first wager. Terms and conditions do apply. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet. Perhaps Leo will join us in here at some point if he's going to be rude and continue to interrupt the show. But with everything going on with the Titans right now, my honest reaction was good. First and foremost, good. But here's why I stopped short of saying. Or here's what my second thought was. My first thought was good. Give him the opportunity to go win a Super Bowl. The dude has been a model citizen. He has been a good soldier on a shitty football team for 2 straight years. Anybody who was capable of producing 1,000 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns with the Titans offense last year, and the fact that he looks worse this year in the Titans offense is frankly, again, to my eye, an indictment of the coaching staff. DeAndre Hopkins may be 32 years old, but he's still a productive player. That man has been able to produce no matter who the hell is playing quarterback for him and no matter what the offense looks like. And DeAndre Hopkins was off to the worst start statistically through no fault of his own through the first 6 games of an NFL season. The only time that he had a worse first 6 games of an NFL season was when he was suspended for the performance-enhancing drug policy in 2022. Since then, it's not even remotely close. This offense made Will Levis worse. This offense made DeAndre Hopkins worse as a result. Nobody seems to function well in this offense, which again leaves you questions about, is it just the quarterback or is it something more? Though we will continue to see those questions answered, I'm certain, here in the next couple of weeks. Nor do I think that the coaching staff is in any real danger yet. Maybe there's a sacrificial lamb. The sacrificial lamb right now, I know Sam did Fall Guys last night. Levis, to me, seems like the most obvious and easiest fall guy out there. But there may be a Nick Holtz offered up to the football gods if Callahan feels like he needs to make a change or somebody tells him that he needs to make a change. Either way, the coaching staff is also under significant scrutiny, but they will not lose their jobs this year because that would mean that the owner would have to admit that she was wrong for making the changes that she did. And I don't think that she is, I don't think she's wrong to want to stick with the decision that she made for the time being, but Amy Adams Strunk has pride, and there's nothing wrong with that. Plenty of us have pride in what we do or who we are or the decisions that we make. You should have the conviction, the courage of your convictions, right? And all the different things when it comes to making decisions. You cannot second guess yourself in jobs like this, but it would look like she's second guessing herself if she fired Brian Callahan and company at the end of the year. So I don't necessarily think that should be the case. I do think that they should get the opportunity to try and put something together with either a draft pick at quarterback or a veteran. I'm frankly more in favor of a proven veteran quarterbacking this team than I am trying to do this shit again through the draft. None of these quarterbacks seem to work out unless you're CJ Stroud and you already have the best left tackle in football on your blind side and an offensive coordinator in his first year who was getting head coaching opportunities. But still, that's neither here nor there. So my first reaction was, okay, good for Hop. That's the right decision. Good for the Titans for trading him, for giving him a chance to succeed. He deserves it. My second reaction was, don't stop there. And they didn't. They traded Ernest Jones away today, and they swapped him for a player in Jerome Baker, who I was also interested in seeing the Titans pursue this offseason. They also got a 4th-round pick for it, so that's fine too. They lost a 5th-round pick trading for Ernest Jones. They recouped a 4th-round pick, which is solid. Not a bad deal at all by Ran Carthon. Both players, in Ernest Jones and Jerome Baker, on expiring contracts. Both are relatively young, right? Ernest Jones, I want to say, is like 25 or 26. Jerome Baker is like 27. At this point, MB says, Buck, let's be honest. Well, where did that quote from MB go? I scrolled right by it, and I apologize because it was a point that I wanted to focus on. Buck, to be honest, you need a top 5 pick to have a chance at a franchise quarterback? Oh, you sure do. And right now you would be picking fourth, but you have to be prepared that you have to get more draft capital to jockey up ahead of the rest of these shitty teams, because the Browns, the Patriots, and the Panthers are all worse than you right now. Now, I don't know how this thing is going to finish. It's only week 8. 11 more weeks of this nonsense is what we will work our way through. And it's 11 straight weeks of this nonsense for the Titans, because their week 5 bye is long gone. But, I don't necessarily – I think we need to redefine the term franchise quarterback, okay? Because I think people – and there's nothing wrong with the idea of, trying to find a quarterback that can be your solution for 8 to 10 years, but just very rare that you can do that. So I'm on this is a different show for another day, probably once we get closer to the end of the season. I'm on board with going out and paying a quarterback, veteran quarterback, somebody who what they can do and what they can't do, somebody who's got proven evidence of success on film, not trying to screw around for 2 years figuring it out with a rookie. I'd rather you go the Sam Darnold route and go out and find, and we have to review obviously quarterbacks that will be available this offseason, because it may not be any better than going through the draft process. But the draft process is such a crapshoot, and I just think that you can get franchise quarterback play without marrying yourself or trying to marry yourself to a quarterback for 8 to 10 years. I just don't think it's necessary at all in today's game, where you see so many different players succeeding on their second, third, fourth, and I think this is Sam Darnold's 5th team at this point. Rambo says Ryan Tannehill, LOL. Ryan Tannehill was a franchise quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is the second most successful quarterback in the Titans era. So I see you saying LOL, and obviously that's past its expiration. But Ryan Tannehill, to me, was a franchise quarterback, even though none of you seem to want it, or many of you, most of you, didn't seem to want to make or admit that he was a franchise quarterback during his time here. Franchise quarterbacks just has to be the franchise quarterbacks for the time that they're there and no longer. You don't have to continue to try and fiddle, I almost said a bad word, but mess around with an experiment that has no guarantee of working if you think that you can be more successful with a proven commodity at a reasonable price. Steelers got Wilson, so there is a chance, right? There's going to be players out there and available. And Russell Wilson may not be Super Bowl caliber Russell Wilson anymore, but he's better than what they had to work with, which was Kenny Pickett. That's the formula. I wrote this article today, but the D-Hop experiment should also, to me, be the end of not the D-Hop experiment. D-Hop wasn't an experiment. You knew what D-Hop was. But D-Hop's trading away should also be the end of the Will Levis experiment, as far as I'm concerned. Whether that's, whether that's right now and he doesn't start any more games, it doesn't sound like he's going to play in Detroit, or whether that's at the end of the season. I am 100% in favor of moving Will Levis the way that Atlanta did with Desmond Ridder, the way that Pittsburgh did with Kenny Pickett, the way that Washington did with Sam Howell. No different. You can get draft capital. It's not going to be the second-round pick that you gave up for him, nor the third-round pick that you traded away for him to trade up and get him. But you can recoup some draft capital for Will Levis at the end of the year. And I think that's a completely fine assessment to make right now, even though we're only 8 weeks in. So anyway, with everything that's going on right now, D-Hop is somebody who it doesn't need to stop there. Ernest Jones was the next move, and you understood the logic on that. That was a sound decision that was made, because you could still extend Jerome Baker. He's about the same. In fact, he's probably a better fit for what the Titans are doing right now, because Kenneth Murray and Ernest Jones were similar players. Jerome Baker is a better coverage linebacker, though he did experience some injuries that have made him less effective in coverage the last couple of years. Chosen says, do I think they're done with Levis? No, I don't think they're done with Levis. They keep telling me that they're going to throw him back out there when he's healthy. So I think I'm done with Levis, but, however long it takes them to make that determination remains to be seen. Callahan said they're on the same page about continuing to start Levis, which, okay, that's fine. I guess you're just expecting the other players in the locker room to go out there and do their jobs, come hell or high water. But I don't think it's as turnkey as that, because Mason Rudolph has given you the best quarterback play that you've had this season, and he is going to give you the best chance to win games, even though I understand that winning games right now is antithetical to what the fan base wants. MB says, Buck, what I don't understand is wouldn't the Titans have gotten a comp pick for DeAndre Hopkins anyway? Wouldn't it be higher than a 5th? Well, he would have to sign somewhere in free agency, and there's no guarantee. Well, you know what? Let me look up quickly the formula. Nobody actually knows the formula for how NFL teams get comp picks exactly. There is a whole different method to the madness, but draft picks are given to a team that has lost more or better players in free agency. So special compensatory draft picks would be distributed in that particular situation. Now, the exact formula to how they determine whether it's a third or a fourth round pick, only the people that come up with the compensatory situations know exactly how that works, which has always been frustrating. But compensatory picks are something that is worth monitoring there, but there is no guarantee. Like the Titans didn't get a comp pick for Jack Conklin because they didn't sign another player that was similar to Jack Conklin. They didn't get a comp pick for Corey Davis. Both of those players walked and got contracts in free agency. They didn't get a comp pick for Jadeveon Clowney, who was a free agent that signed here and then signed elsewhere because they didn't replace Jadeveon Clowney in free agency. So I don't have the exact method to the madness, but it doesn't seem like the compensatory pick for DeAndre Hopkins was a sure thing. So this was more of a sure thing than the comp pick formula. Now, does it matter that you got a conditional pick for DeAndre Hopkins that's a fifth, potentially a fourth? No, because the Chiefs are going to be, if not in the Super Bowl, they're going to be in the playoffs. And that's going to be a low fourth round pick, which is essentially a 5. So that's kind of where these things are at right now. Anthony Maley says we should get a comp pick for being inept. No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't be rewarded for being bad at this. I don't like the draft process anyway because it rewards teams for being shitty and leads fans to be interested in tanking, which I think is the exact opposite of how you should approach these things. But hey, I'm not here to fix football tonight. Anyway, Darren Ossie says what they do with this pick is important. Yeah, it's very important. They have to find a way to package it. It's not necessarily just about the fifth or the fourth or whatever it becomes. It becomes about what else you can do with it. What else does it give you the flexibility to do? And I see a variety of you guys asking about who might be next. We'll get to that here in just a second, right after I remind you. Well, I'll ask you the question. Who do you think the Titans should prioritize trading next? We will work our way through it together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress. The intel edge you need to succeed can be found at GaryAshton.com. So, which player would you like to see the Titans move next? Clash King says Traylon Burks. It's not impossible, right? And you can trade players who are on injured reserve because Traylon Burks would, at this point, be on injured reserve beyond the trade deadline. That is something that is possible. A. Jensen says Snead. That's not happening because there's too much guaranteed money. Lovely Hal says Key. Why would anybody want Arden Key right now? I'm confused. These have to be players that people want. Like who? Not just no. The exercise is not which players do you want to get rid of. The exercise is which players would teams actually want. Traylon Burks and Arden Key are very, very low on the list. That's not viable whatsoever. Chris Alonso says they're finna leave Landry in the 3-1-3 after Sunday. And that's where I would start. Harold Landry has an audition in Detroit, is essentially what this is. Harold Landry on Sunday has the opportunity to audition for the Detroit Lions, who lost Aiden Hutchinson for the year to injury. That is not a one-to-one replacement. Aiden Hutchinson is a far better pass rusher than is Harold Landry, but Harold is good enough in a defense that desperately needs pass rush to make a difference there. I know for a fact that NFC North teams are trying to, compete in this arms race right now. I know Minnesota is continuing to be interested in defensive players. I think that they would be very interested in either Harold Landry or Jeff Simmons, but they're not making Jeffrey Simmons available. This is a big Harold Landry needs to go out there. The best case scenario for you as a fan base is that Harold Landry goes out there and kicks ass. Now, whether you win the game or lose the game, more likely in Detroit remains to be seen. But Harold Landry goes out there, shows out, puts it on tape in front of Detroit. Lions fans are talking about it. Brad Holmes, the GM, is talking about it. Dan Campbell gets asked about it in his press conference, says, yeah, we'd love a guy like that on our squad. Harold Landry goes to Detroit, plays a good game, gets traded to the Lions. Harold's deal has an out at the end of this year. He does still have years left on his deal, but the way that it's structured, if they took the deal as it's presently constituted, would give Detroit an out if they decided that Harold Landry was only going to be a rental. Now, what does a player with more guaranteed money than DeAndre Hopkins on his remaining salary? What does that garner when it's not a rental, even though you have an out? I would say no better than a third. I would think no better than a third round pick. Now you need a third round pick. You gave away a third round pick for Levis. You gave away a third round pick for Snead. So I do think that is something. Now, if you ate some of the salary, because you have cap space, you can buy the pick up the way that the Titans did or tried to do with the Chiefs to the best of their ability, and even then got a pretty raw deal out of it. But it was the best deal that they were going to get. You could buy that pick up by buying or paying some of Harold Landry's salary and make that fourth round pick potentially a third. There could also be incentives involved as well. I think that it makes a lot of sense specifically for Harold Landry to be the next player that moved. I also think that it would make sense to trade Jeff Simmons, but they don't seem interested in doing it. I talked to Jeff today after this scrum that you're about to hear, and Jeff said nobody's approached him about it, nor does he expect to be approached about it, which, are all things that get said. A.J. Brown was never going to get traded from the Tennessee Titans as long as Mike Vrabel was the coach, and we know how that went down, so these things happen. But there is no sense right now that Jeff Simmons is going to be moved, even though I think it makes sense to try and trade Jeff.
Yeah, we all knew what D-Hop brought to the team. At the end of the day, I decided, you know how this thing go, players come and go. We're going to miss him for sure, his presence and what he brought to the team. But, we won 5. I think the focus need to be on the guys in the locker room. How can we be better leaders, especially throughout the week? Just focus on the small details and focus on everyone just being disciplined, doing their job. I think that's needed to be the focus going forward. But like I said, we lost 2 good players today, including Ernest. Gonna miss playing with him the little time that we had. Another guy that had major respect for just over the small time. But have full confidence in the guys that have been here before him, like Jack Gibbons, and the way he carries himself with professionalism. I think we shouldn't miss a beat. The great part about it, especially on defense, our record don't show it, but we still the number 1 defense, and that's the exciting part about it. That we playing so much good defense, but not great defense. And like I said, just the small things and the details and the discipline could lead us to a better record than we got right now.
So that's Jeff Simmons talking about, they still have the number 1 defense and they continue to be, confident as a unit and things like that. Now, obviously, they've got moving parts too. Brian Callahan said this morning he wasn't commenting on any of the trades, but he did say that he had not addressed the entire team about everything that's going on. Darren Ossie says Jeff sounds sad. I mean, yeah, he's 1-5. Why wouldn't he be sad? Of course he's sad. Everybody's sad. It's okay to be sad at 1-5. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be pissed and all these other things. But I think personally that Jeff Simmons makes sense. They don't seem to agree. Now, the logic that I would be curious to know more information about that nobody's been willing to disclose is, well, if Jeff was fully healthy, like say Jeff didn't need elbow surgery in the offseason, because he's going to have surgery in the offseason. He just doesn't need it right now. If Jeff was fully healthy, would you trade him then? Because then you're recouping better value for Jeff Simmons. Teams know, he can play well enough, but he's not. Jeff hadn't been special this year. He's been about, what people think he is, which is the 4th or 5th best interior defensive lineman in football, which isn't bad. Like, you like those guys. Those guys help you win football games, of course. Interior pressure is at a premium, and that is something that matters to football teams, and especially when you just drafted Tavondre Sweat and you like the idea of keeping them together. I understand that, but, he hadn't been special. His trade value is not at an all-time high, which is why teams are calling the Titans about Jeff, because they think they can get him for a value. And his deal's not that bad. You can move money around. Titans can eat money, all these other things, but they don't seem to be willing to do that specifically for Jeffrey Simmons. So who should be next? It should be Harold Landry. Give Harold Landry the opportunity to go win something too. I also think Quandre Diggs, Tyler Boyd, those two guys make the most sense as far as teams or players that teams would be legitimately interested in adding. Now you can wait a couple of weeks because we still have 13 days until the NFL trade deadline. I love that the deadline day is on election night, which is unfortunate because I guess I wouldn't do that. Oh, would I do that Tuesday show? I guess I would probably do that Tuesday show instead of, maybe I'll take Wednesday night off at that point instead of Tuesday, and just switch with Sam, because that is obviously an important show for me to be a part of. So yeah, we'll work our way through that when we get there. I just can't. Those two things happening on the same day is going to be a headache. At least trade deadline day ends at 3 p.m. and obviously the election will continue well into the evening, if not into the next day. But either way, all these things to say that the Titans don't have that many assets to move. Don't that many assets that teams would actually want. Levis should be traded once we get to the end of the season. Everybody who's not on a long-term deal, like just signed a long-term deal essentially, or was a part of this 2024 draft class, I think should be up for grabs. I think they should consider moving Tajay Spears since they've got Tony Pollard under contract, and they seem to be completely content to lean on Tony, and they can continue to draft a backup running back if they want. If a team wants Tajay Spears, I think he should be made available. I think Peter Skoronski, I wouldn't move. Offensive line is different. Obviously, the two guys that they drafted with high draft picks this year, Latham and Sweat, those should be players that they keep long term. But everything else, I think it's fair game. Mike Connolly says, "Can we trade their new stadium?" I mean, the way that I think this is going to work is I think they're going to fire everybody before the new stadium opens anyway. 2027 is such a long way away. And I don't even think that's got anything to do with the idea that that these teams can't find different ways to manage the situation, but for just for the sake of trying to sell tickets. I mean, what's going to be exciting? I mean, can you imagine the next 2 years at Nissan Stadium? As things continue to trend in this direction, they are in a really, really tough spot. So if for no other reason but to sell tickets, they might try something like that to that effect. Lovely Hal says, "Buck, you look defeated." No, I'm not. Honest to God, like the best part about, I mean, I have no rooting allegiance here. So success or failure, I'm going to go to practice. I'm going to talk to guys in the locker room, no matter what. Though I did tell Burton Lucas I really was thinking about not going to practice today, but I went because it's my job. Like I'm paid good money to do this for a living. And even when they're 1-5, it doesn't. I mean, sometimes it affects my mood for sure because I like DeAndre Hopkins personally. I enjoyed talking to him about things other than football in the locker room. I think that he is a incredibly interesting individual, and I'm going to miss him, frankly. But it happens, and the job goes on, and it's still a really fun job. And I get to cover a game in Detroit. Never done a game in Detroit. That's one of 6 stadiums I've never done. So I'm tired. I am tired. Today was a long day. There was a lot of different moving pieces and parts. Excuse me. I can't even speak right. And a lot of it happened during the radio show or before the radio show. Hell, thank God I wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Otherwise, I probably would have been asleep during the Hopkins trade. So I'm sleepy, but I'm not defeated. You guys would have a hard time running me off, nor could you, because you would also have to buy out my contract because I'm on a 4-year deal. So let's move on to rising and falling. Whose stock rose? Whose stock fell this week in sports? Eric Castillo says no one is excited to cover a 1-5 team. Well, I'll tell you, it's the most it's ever felt like work, for sure. I would be lying to you if I said I was excited, but I do think that there's some excitement in the nuclear option. You know, if it's bad, let's go all the way, right? No in between, no middle ground. So yeah, it's still exciting. Deadline's going to be exciting. They're probably going to sell more pieces and parts off. That's going to keep me interested. Whether it pisses me off in the meantime, yeah, I mean, I'll get a little angry from time to time, but for the most part, it's all gravy, baby. It gives me something to talk about. It's better than them not trading pieces and parts. Like that's what pissed me off about what they did last year. If you're going to trade Byard, trade Henry too. Like, don't get emotional about Derrick Henry just because you like Derrick Henry and also you want people to show up and continue to watch your football team when there's no other reason to watch them. I would look at this and say, yeah, go all the way. They should have gone all the way last year, and they didn't because they got emotional about it. And that's not the way that they can afford to do business if they're actually going to try and rebuild this football team correctly. Joshua Medina says, Buck, what would you want in return for Jeff starting with a 1? No. Jeff Simmons is not first round draft pick trade worthy right now. That would be, I would say a 2. A two's reasonable for somebody, especially. Well, it depends on who the team is, right? Like, is the team made infinitely better by Jeff Simmons because they've already got a great defense, right? Can they plug Jeff in and help Jeff be more special than he already is because they've already got good pieces and parts, or are they trying to build around Jeffrey Simmons? For a team that's desperate, you could probably do it too. For a team that's just trying to push for a Super Bowl, I mean, with him right now on a bum elbow, I think you'd be lucky to get a 3 at this point. And it depends on like how good the team is that you're trading with, right? If you traded, say, who needs a defensive tackle right now? Let's just say the Ravens don't, but let's just say the Ravens, for example, because I'm staring at Bert and Bert's a Ravens fan. Let's say the Ravens don't need Jeff Simmons, but Jeff Simmons would help them make a playoff push. The Ravens don't have to give you anything special because the Ravens aren't trying to build around Jeffrey Simmons. They're just trying to use a couple of years of Jeff to get the best possible stuff out of their defense. In that kind of situation, you would kind of be banged if you actually wanted to move him. And you can say, yeah, a third's not good enough for a player like this. That's entirely within your rights. But that's about as good as I think that they could do for him right now, which is also a part of the reason why I don't think that they would trade him. I take Jefferson, Chase, probably a few others over him. AJ can ghost. I'm not sure what we're talking about. That's wide receiver talking. We're not talking about wide receivers. Either way, rising and falling. Whose stock rose? Whose stock fell this week in sports? We'll talk about it together right after I remind you that the primetime program is presented by TrueMath Fitness. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. Get your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled. No workout ever repeated. Just the best in the business at TrueMath Fitness. Whose stock rose? Well, that's pretty easy. DeAndre Hopkins' stock went up when he got traded from a 1-5 team to a 6-0 team. Pretty nice way to wake up.
It has been a long rumor deal that now is happening. Sources say DeAndre Hopkins, the star receiver for the Tennessee Titans, is in the process of being traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. The champs continue to load up. Another day, another big-time receiver moves. It has certainly been a season full of them. We've seen Devontae Adams. We've seen Amari Cooper. Now DeAndre Hopkins is the latest. My understanding is this is in exchange for a 5th rounder that could become a 4th rounder. The two sides are still going back and forth now on salary. My understanding is the Titans are going to pay some of DeAndre Hopkins' base salary for this year just to make it easier for the Chiefs to withstand the salary. But this trade is expected to happen. So KC has lost Hollywood Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster not going to play this week. But DeAndre Hopkins is expected to be there. You're right. This has been a long rumored trade. But listen to how fast it happened. It has been nothing but rumors till about, I would say, midnight last night, Kansas City time. The two sides got together. They kind of threw hypotheticals back and forth. By about 5 or 6 in the morning, today it became clear that a deal would happen, expected to be finalized soon. D-Hop going to join the Chiefs.
Stock up DeAndre Hopkins. Pretty good spot to be. Carrie says, Buck, when will we get a mock draft? Never. I screw with Lucas on the radio show and tell him that we're going to do mock draft Monday in week 8, but I don't do mock drafts. I think they're a dumb exercise, even though I understand that there's nothing else to do right now at 1-5, but mock drafts. That would be the time when I look defeated. If you make me talk draft before even the trade deadline, I'm just not going to do it. Maybe at some point. Maybe I'll have no other choice. But right now, I have a choice. I'm not going to do it just yet. Mickey Kaufman says, we suck again. Yep. But it's been 3 years. Not that you should get used to the suck, but It should come. I mean, it is more surprising this year because they told you were going to be meaningfully competitive, and you're worse. I mean, there is no disputing that this is a worse football team than the last 2 years, and that's pretty crazy to think about. It was brutal. Ocho says it's almost time to start watching college games. I mean, I watch college games now, right? I mean, I'm paying attention. Obviously, I have a 3-hour radio show. I can't just talk about the Titans for 3 hours on Sports Talk Radio. We do plenty of SEC discussion as well. We've talked about Colorado plenty. Like, I'm seeing plenty of college football right now, but yeah, I'm not doing mock drafts yet. That's not what we're gonna do. All right, that is going to Anthony Malley says you guys were a part of that. You know what? That's fair criticism, Anthony. I absolutely bought what they were selling. I thought that they checked a lot of the right boxes. I had no idea it was going to fail this spectacularly, but yeah, I am not paid to sell you on anything. My job is to look at what I'm seeing, talk to the people that I get to talk to, use my whatever level of expertise. Maybe you don't consider me to have a level of expertise in anything, and that's fine, as is your right. But, the assessment was, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense what they're doing. Should work, and it didn't work. So it's easier for me to throw my hands up in the air and be like, oh, well, shit. Okay, I guess they tried. And also criticize them because they're 1-5 and all the different things that they told me, just as well as they told you, haven't come to fruition. Now, the difference between you and me is I don't pay for tickets, right? Like, I'm paid to go to these games. I don't pay for parking. I don't pay for food. I don't pay for my seat at Nissan Stadium. All these things are a part of my job. So to sell me on something is different to actually sell you guys on something because you guys are financially invested. And I obviously make money from covering the team. So I am also, to a degree, financially invested. But the radio, thank God, the radio show is kicking ass. By the way, we just got our Q3 reports today, and the way that you just year over year, like, this isn't ratings talk, which you're not allowed to do, but I'll just tell you the ratings for the radio show kick ass, and we're very happy with it. So we thank you, which is crazy because the football team has been ass basically since we've had the radio show, and the fact that you guys still listen to us is wild. But we are up as a podcast for the radio show over 100% year over year. And that's not just for the radio show. That's the install isn't quite up 100%, but pretty big rate of growth in the install and the radio show year over year. So we got that report sent to us by our bosses at Cumulus today. So I just have to say thank you because God knows why you guys are listening the way you are at this point. But yeah, Anthony, it's completely fair criticism. I bought what they were selling, and it didn't work. That's what it is. Justin Connor says they can't trade you, right, Buck? Well, they could buy me out of my contract. Sure. A to Z, I signed a 2-year deal with A to Z in March. I signed a 4-year deal with the radio show in March, or with the radio station in March. So, yeah, theoretically they could buy me out if they were tired of my shit. They may get tired of my shit at some point. So I don't want to speak these things. I don't want to manifest anything into existence because I love my job. And I know I give you guys a lot of shit. I know you give me a lot of shit, but I genuinely love doing this for you, even though I think a lot of you guys don't think that I do this for you. I do this for me because I like making money and I like doing cool things. And this job allows me to accomplish both in a very, very fun fashion. But I do like working for you guys. It's a good time, even though, sometimes you're unhinged, sometimes you're out of control. So am I. We're a good match. We're toxic together, baby. It's like the best kind of or best kind of relationship with your ex. It's that toxic familiarity that you know and that you love, or that I shouldn't say this because I'm going to get myself into relationship trouble. We're probably going to end the show on that. That's going to do it for us tonight here on the Primetime program. We appreciate you guys spending your time here with us as you always do. And by the way, I should say that I don't say nice things about Bert ever because Bert doesn't deserve things, nice things to be said. But Bert busts his ass to make sure that the radio show can have success the way that it does, as well as the install. Shizzy says, Buck, you do it for yourself. Yeah, listen, I'm not going to lie to you. Nobody likes being me better than me. Like, I'll just tell you that straight up, but you guys already knew that. So thank you guys for rewarding Bert and Lucas's hard work. I'm not working as hard as either of them, but I just get, I get to be the mascot essentially, which is all I've ever wanted, which is great for me. So thank you guys for supporting all of these shows the way that you do. But have a great rest of your night. Radio show tomorrow from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. We will have a great time together. We'll talk about a lot of other things that we didn't get to that I talked to players about in the locker room too. So tune in then or watch us on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel if you're so inclined. And also in about 12 hours from now, I will be taping a new episode of The Install with Greg Cosell of NFL Films. We're probably not going to talk about the Titans because the Titans don't matter anymore, but we'll talk about all the places where the Titans players went and how much better they're going to make those teams. See you guys.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville! Go home!